Welcome to the GAMERamble video review for Biomorph, narrated by me, Darkcloud. As always, the full text version of this review can be found on the GAMERamble website linked below. The TLDR is that Biomorph is a dark Metroidvania game with beautiful 2D hand-drawn visuals and animations. Playing as Amnesia character named Harlow, players must explore a massive interconnected world to recover their memories, upgrade their arsenal, and unlock new biomorphs. These biomorphs, which involves killing enemies to turn into them, is one of the most unique elements in the game, but doesn't feature as prominently as we expected. Instead, access to new areas mostly depends on unlocking traditional Metroidvania style skills and abilities. Having said that, the game is still very entertaining, and its fascinating world is a joy to explore. Gameplay receives an 8 out of 10. Biomorph features all the traditional Metroidvania elements, along with the ability to morph into fallen enemies and use their abilities to traverse the game world. Graphics receives an 8 out of 10. The 2D sprites and backgrounds look great, and there are plenty of different biomes to explore. Sound receives an 8 out of 10. The Biomorph soundtrack is good, and the game also has decent sound effects. The overall score for Biomorph is 8 out of 10. And now for the full review. Biomorph opens with your character Harlow, freed from stasis by violent tremors hitting the strange facility where you were held. In the process, Harlow spots another member of their species, still caught in stasis, but is urged to escape by Inai and Ziki. The latter is a pair of talking prosthetics that Harlow appears to be wielding instead of arms and hands. If these were not strange enough, Harlow also discovers that they have the ability to morph into the creatures they kill and use their abilities. Unfortunately, this is all that Harlow knows, as the rest of their memory appears to be blank. After making their way through the facility, which serves as a tutorial area, Harlow ends up getting ejected into the outside world, where the real adventure begins. Biomorph is a dark Metroidvania game that answers the question of what would happen if you crossed Hollow Knight with Kirby. Harlow is a typical Metroidvania protagonist who starts with very few skills and abilities, but this changes as players uncovers more of the game world. The ability to morph into fallen foes is one of the game's selling points, but thanks to Ina and Ziki, Harlow can also find chips to unlock new skills and combat abilities. The attack modules are a cool touch as players can customize Harlow to their liking. Players start with the Bruisers, which transform Ina and Ziki into hard-hitting Knuckles to perform a melee attack, but plenty of other options soon become available. For example, players who prefer range attacks can opt for the Execution, which fires Ferox bullets at enemies, or the Ferox Spectre to launch bouncing grenades. Unfortunately, most of the more powerful attacks have limited charges and must be recharged at the save spots. Players can only have 3 chips equipped at a time, and there are 15 in total to find, which means there are plenty of ways to play. More cautious players can even choose options such as the Little Helper, which summons a flying assistant that fires bullets at enemies, or the Ferox Field, which creates a shield around players. In addition to the chips, players can also unlock mementos for passive abilities. Each memento takes up a certain number of slots, with the more powerful ones taking up more space. Mementos are versatile, and range from ones that can inflict damage on enemies that hurt Harlow, to increasing the number of charges for chips. Like the chips, mementos can only be swapped at save spots called save stations. Both chips and mementos can be upgraded with resources found while exploring, but players also have to spend the currency earned by defeating monsters, called plaques. Plaques are the only things players drop if they are defeated, but players can respawn at the nearest save station and return to the site of their death to retrieve their plaques. Of course, being careless and dying before reaching the plaques means they're gone for good. Players can find a memento that prevents their plaques from dropping if they die, but the developers also added this option as an accessibility feature in an update. Harlow's quest starts as a rescue mission, but after talking to some locals in the hub town of Blightmoor, players also learn more about the world's fate and that of its inhabitants. Players will return to Blightmoor throughout the game, as it's home to the merchants who sell new chips and offer upgrades. However, players are also responsible for finding the blueprints that add new buildings to town or upgrade the existing ones. There's even a blueprint for building Harlow a home in town, which can be spruced up by purchasing decorations. Some NPCs in town also provide Harlow with side missions to accomplish. These range from finding the missing Scargatos, which are alien cats for the resident cat lady, to searching for the wandering musician who ends up in the unlikeliest locations. None of the side quests are vital to completing the game, but they incentivize players to explore the massive map fully. Biomorph features different biomes, each with its own unique look and enemies. For example, the Badlands look like something out of the Wild West, while the Sentinel Complex is a massive factory filled with conveyor belts. Each biome is further split into rooms, which makes exploration a little easier. One of the things we love about Biomorph is that it has a mini-map visible on screen at all times, and each room completely cleared is marked with a golden outline. This is absolutely invaluable for thorough exploration, and helped a lot in our quest to get 100% of the achievements. Some rooms are massive though, with a few almost as large as other biomes. Fortunately, players can place pins on the map and color code them to help remember sections that might be inaccessible until they get new abilities. We expected the biomorphs to play a much more significant role in the game, but they're mostly only needed in the biomes they are found. Killing a creature allows players to absorb their corpse and turn into them, complete with their abilities. Initially this can only be done using the enemy's corpse, but once players absorb enough of the same creature, it's added to their biomorph list and can be turned into at any time. However, there are a few limitations to prevent players from abusing this feature. First, only each unique kill counts, so players can't farm the same creature to add it to their biomorph list quicker. This is quite important, as after a creature is added to the biomorph list, players can still kill and absorb others of its kind to upgrade the existing one. Watch out though, as it not only makes your biomorphs stronger, but will also upgrade the enemy ones. Secondly, players only have 3 slots for biomorphs, which can only be changed at the save stations. Ordinarily this isn't an issue, as creatures are mostly only useful in the areas where they're found. However, there are a few instances where we randomly encountered barriers that are only passable by certain biomorphs in completely different biomes. This meant marking the spot, returning to the save station, equipping the correct biomorph, and then tracking back all the way to the marked spot to access whatever it was hiding. Thankfully, the developers added the ability to warp back to a save station at any time in an update, which cuts down on some of the hassles. The biomorphs have abilities like smashing through specific walls, jumping on spikes, flying for a limited time, or grappling from wall hooks. Still, only a few are really useful on a regular basis. Our favourites are the ghostly Ombre Blanche, which has a triple jump ability, and the Oddwings, which can fly for a limited time. Visually, Biomorph is a great looking game, with detailed and unique hand-drawn 2D sprites and backgrounds. The art style is definitely reminiscent of Hollow Knight, but the artists at Lucid Dream Studio did a good job creating the setting and character designs. Each area is very different, which keeps the exploration fun, and the backgrounds are filled with enough detail to give them some depth despite being 2D. Some puzzles also incorporate background details, such as searching for number combinations to access certain hidden areas. The character animations are also really good, with our favourite being the one for Hollow using safe stations to teleport. In addition, the game even has a few animated cutscenes of important story moments, which are really well done. Players can expect to spend quite a few hours exploring everything Biomorph has to offer, so thankfully the soundtrack is good enough to never become repetitive. Each biome has its own music, and a few of these are pretty catchy. Sound effects are decent too, but the game does not feature any speech. We played Biomorph using a controller and found the controls very responsive. In addition to attacking, Harlow can perform a dash move, which is essential for avoiding damage. Enemies tend to telegraph their attacks, and bosses have easy to spot patterns, but it doesn't take much to kill Harlow. Players have access to a healing ability, but it takes a while to activate and has limited charges. Along with contact damage, Harlow gets knocked back when taking damage, which is not great when navigating some trickier sections. Any contact with spiky hazards costs players health and resets them back to the last solid ground they touched. This is better than instant death, but reversing some sections where enemies can knock players into spikes is a bit annoying. Although we found the game's challenge to be relatively mild compared to other Metroidvania titles, the developers have added some accessibility options in an update to help out players who are struggling. These include increasing the damage inflicted by players and decreasing the damage from enemies. All in all, we really enjoyed our time with Biomorph, and the game kept our interest right until the end. While there's no New Game Plus mode, the game has 3 different endings, one of which is the true ending that requires more effort and exploration. The ability to morph into enemies is a neat touch. However, Biomorph still plays more like a traditional Metroidvania, with progression locked behind abilities such as travelling along electrical wires, gliding on fan currents, swimming and wall jumping. This might disappoint players expecting the different biomorphs to play a more significant role in progression. Nevertheless, we always had something different to see and do in Biomorph, and even clearing every room in the game to get all the achievements remained enjoyable. Thanks for joining me for this Biomorph PC review. Remember to like, subscribe and share. Until next time.